Good morning and welcome to the Standing Committee meeting for Tuesday, November 9th, 2021. Council will be meeting in a hybrid format until further notice. We encourage speakers to continue registering and speaking virtually as there will be limited numbers of seats available in council chambers. Our first order of business is public comment. I'd like to remind all speakers that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation which are or may be before city council. Once you are called, please provide your name and neighborhood for the record. Our first registered speaker is Anna Coleman.
Hello. Okay, my name is Anna Coleman. I'm from North Point Breeze. So as an environmental justice organizer, it is encouraging to see the city take on legislation around lead. It's exciting that this legislation could meaningfully mitigate the everyday lead risks residents of our city face, but I'm here today, along with others, to encourage the legislation to be as strong as it can be. So there are a few identified areas that I'll speak to. First, as introduced, the lead inspections required by the bill will only happen via the city's proposed rental registry program. And I would like to suggest that PLI should inspect for lead hazards in pre-1978 rental dwellings as well as child-occupied facilities whenever PLI inspects these properties as originally intended. Second, under current language in the bill, the lead inspection protocols of the ordinance are not to exceed applicable law. Under this provision, because there is no applicable law that already requires inspection for lead hazards, the lead inspection provision could effectively be nullified. Third, with the revisions made of the ordinance, the city excluded itself from having to ensure that renovations, repairs, and paintings in its own facilities are conducted in an EPA certified lead safe manner. This is a crucial component of decreasing exposure, so again, should be revisited. Fourth, by removing the general enforcement provision of the proposed lead safety law, there's no mechanism to enforce compliance with demolition. And this is, again, crucial to the effectiveness of this bill. Fifth, the ordinance should include financial assistance or incentives to help homeowners and small landlords make repairs that address lead hazards. And finally, by removing the replacement of all lead service lines in the city from the ordinance, citizens are being placed at a greater risk for lead exposure. Again, this ordinance is greatly weakened by not including this. So there are a few areas that the ordinance could be strengthened for it to be as effective as possible. And as this is something that's super exciting for the work that I do, along with many other community members, we really want to encourage City Council to pass the strongest bill possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Caitlin Schroering, followed by Brenda Smith.
Thank you. Yes, good afternoon. My name is Caitlin Schroering. I am a homeowner in Greenfield, 15207. I also hold a PhD in sociology, and I'm involved in community work here in Pittsburgh, including around the right to safe, affordable, public, and lead-free water here in our city. And my comments today are also focused on the Pittsburgh lead safety law introduced by Council the end of October. This is a critically important bill, and I am so glad to see the Council take the initiative to introduce it. That said, there were significant changes made to the bill before its introduction, and those changes as they stand limit how effective the bill could actually be in preventing lead exposure. So I will now briefly note what these changes were and ask you to hold the bill until those problems have been corrected. First, the lead inspections required by the bill will only happen via the city's proposed rental registry program. This is a problem because it eliminates inspections for lead hazards in child-occupied facilities, which was a key element of the bill. Further, the current bill limits lead inspections to periodic 3-year inspections proposed in the rental registry program. What needs to happen are inspections for lead hazards in pre-1978 rental dwellings and child-occupied facilities whenever permits, licensing, and inspections inspects these properties. And this was in the original language of the bill. 2, currently lead inspection protocols of the ordinance are not to exceed applicable law. So under this provision, because there is no law that requires inspection for lead hazards, the lead inspection provision of the Pittsburgh lead safety law is effectively nullified. 3, in the current version, the city excluded itself from having to ensure that renovations, repairs, and painting in its own facilities are conducted in an EPA certified lead safe manner. This is a huge problem that needs to be corrected. 4, there is currently no mechanism to enforce compliance with the demolition and renovation, repair, and painting requirements of the ordinance, since the general enforcement provision of the proposed Pittsburgh lead safety law was removed. And finally, this ordinance should include financial assistance or incentives to help homeowners and small landlords make needed repairs to address lead hazards. The original version had income and property tax incentives. If these are unavailable, then the city should create a fund. And one possible way to fund it would be to use CDBG, American Rescue Plan Act funds, or a combination of sources. In conclusion, I ask that council hold this bill until these problems are corrected, since as it stands, it renders it potentially ineffective. So I ask that you please amend it to correct these problems and then move swiftly to enact this important legislation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brenda Smith, followed by Thomas Hoffman.
Hi, I'm Brenda Smith and I live in Squirrel Hill. I'm here this morning also to speak in favor of the strongest possible lead safety legislation for the city of Pittsburgh. For far too long, we have let this problem continue, leaving some of our city's children with permanent impairments due to inadvertent lead consumption. I'm happy that council has decided to take action, but I'm concerned that the proposed legislation is not as strong as it could be and should be. Whenever the Office of Permits, Licenses, and Inspections is inspecting a property built before 1978, or any property that's occupied by children, regardless of the reason for the inspection, it should include checking for lead hazards. Any buildings owned by the city should be subject to the same standards that the legislation applies to others. If the city exempts itself from these regulations, it sends a bad message about the seriousness of the problem. In addition, I think it's important for the city to find a way to offer some amount of financial assistance for low-income homeowners and small landlords to be able to make the necessary repairs to reduce lead hazards. Between the ARPA funds that we've received and the funding that will come our way from the Infrastructure and Jobs Bill just passed, or the Build Back Better Act soon to be passed, there should be a way to create a fund to help get this done in a way that doesn't place an undue burden on property owners. Finally, I would encourage you to work with organizations in the Get the Lead Out Coalition to strengthen this legislation before it comes to a vote. Thank you for providing this opportunity for public comment.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Thomas Hoffman, followed by Dr. Ronald Miller.
Hi there, it's Tom Hoffman. I'm a homeowner. I live on Willard Street in Point Breeze. The previous speakers have outlined pretty much my position that the bill, as it was originally introduced, was great. You're to be commended for doing it. And then the changes that have happened have severely weakened the bill. And I also encourage you to hold the bill and fix those problems before you vote on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Ronald Lynn Miller, followed by Naomi Mullen.
Dr. Ronald Lynn Miller, Bells Hoover, U.S. National Candidate 2024. I'm a member of the American Physical Society. You can be contacted at cgsii.rlm.globalintelligence@gmail.com. It's my primary email. A concern of council is local Pittsburgh security. A number of speakers this morning have, I think, very, very sensibly and reasonably dealt with this on a very specific axis. But I do ask this question before I go any further. Where were Mr. Gainey and Mr. Moreno yesterday when Mr. Peduto was offering his State of the City? I think it's really important to be able to deal with opposition, different points of view. The LS, or local security, requires the use of informational probabilities and propositional intelligence. We heard that from a number of speakers already. Temporal and spatial coherence and decoherence and information density and intelligence complexity. TC, temporal coherence via decoherence. In decoherence, particle, point, both, and superposition becomes an either or position via observation. Temporal decoherence will improve LS via the following actions observed and changed. Using densely focused informational information and applied with rigorous intelligence. We citizens observe that council coherence failure or superpositional both and in both identifying a 10 a.m. start time for council meetings and routinely starting council meetings as happened today at 10:15 or later. And in both encouraging citizens to contact you, councilors, and yet not answering via telephone or text or email, even though Mr. Peduto thinks that is a really important thing to do, and not within days, sometimes weeks, if not at all. The spatial decoherence will improve LS by our observing the failure of councilors and city county scanners downstairs to be informed about the chemical periodical table of the elements and using an intelligent application to detect dangerous substances. Secondly, by observing the failure of counselors and human service providers to know the 4 DNA, RNA factors. So change this, read the science, and change from Fahrenheit degrees to Celsius.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Naomi Mullen, followed by Andre Del Valle.
Hello.
Yes, please begin, Ms. Mullen.
Good morning.
Hold on.
Okay.
My,
Hold on 1 second, Les. Go ahead, Ms. Mullen.
One more, Les.
Okay. Shady trees, not shady deals in Bon Air. The Pennsylvania Constitution states under political powers that all power is inherent in the people and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, safety, and happiness. Where did elected officials get the idea that they are lording over us? How can they make decisions for our community that we have lived in and been property owners in for decades? The PPS board and administration, along with Gregory Coyle, are creating a controversy. After repeated speeches to the board and city council, they have not dropped the sale of Bon Air School. It is a crime to use a falsehood, to vote, create a resolution, sign a sales agreement, transfer a property, or create a legal contract under a misrepresentation. Officials have a duty to investigate and act against the crime when notified. Consider yourselves notified. Any official who tells us that we, the people of Bon Air, have no standing in this controversy is against us. This issue has united our neighborhood regardless of political party or race. We have hundreds of signatures on our petition to prove the community support for a green space. Significant community concern has been expressed to the Board of Education and City Council all these months since the announcement of the sales agreement for Bon Air School. Perhaps there is a neighborhood busting plan afoot. Block busting is illegal. Is there any lobbying or unregistered lobbying taking place? Are any special friends of politicians involved in this non-compliant sale? A senior neighbor whose extended family has lived here for over 100 years told me something very wise. She said that there is going to be a revolution if this keeps up. My sincere, consistent request is that City Council create a resolution to block zoning change and support a green space to replace Bon Air's school building. Do your part for the environment, reduce urban heat, reduce watershed to Route 51, increase green space to benefit all ages and stages, protect the children at the playground, cross the street. Let's make it wheelchair accessible to allow those who have difficult access to nature the ability to enjoy it. Tear down detrimental problem buildings, not safe, stable neighborhoods. You want to reduce watershed to Route 51, this is your opportunity. Investigate fraudulent acts by PPS administration, board, and contractors. Oversight is needed to avoid bad action, like poor roundabout placement. Shady trees, not shady deals in Bon Air. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Mr. Ludwig.
Thank you. My name is Les Ludwig. I live at 6589 Rosemore Street in Squirrel Hill. I came this morning to present the card of the former candidate because of the fact that a very strange coincidence happened. When I pulled up to WTAE to look for coverage for my own candidacy, lo and behold, who was there? It was Ed Gainey, and he came over to me, and he was the wonderful gentleman that I really thought that he is. He extended his hand in welcome, and I said to him, "Hey, you know, most of the money's going to be budgeted. How are you going to deal with the areas of the city that feel ignored when you don't have any bread to do it with?" I said, "Well, I'm the crazy guy who thought up Management Budget Revenue Opportunities Act of '03. It hasn't been carried through to all of its potential. But there's a difference now. I don't know whether the 2% club passed in December 16th. I've asked Mr. Free to look into the records. It's time to stop and look at ourselves and say, we the people, or we the city council? When are you going to reopen the parking lot? When are you going to stop charging people $10 per car for parking? Thank God, look at these wonderful people who made it here today. We the people get ideas, have a contribution to make. That's what democracy is about, not what Mr. Trump has told us. He's divided us and cut us up into pieces. We have to come back together again. So I want to leave this card because I told Ed, I said, Ed, you're going to need money? I said, I'm available. And he said to me, well, I have to wait and see if I get elected. Well, that has occurred. Thank you for your attention. And I present this card. And I hope that Ed will be contacting me so that those parts of the city that feel ignored will know that they actually are the city of Pittsburgh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Andre Del Valle, followed by Taylor Musil.
Good morning, City Council members, and thank you for the opportunity to testify today on Bill number 2021-2101, establishing inspections for lead-based paint hazards throughout Pittsburgh. My name is Andre Del Valle. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Pennsylvania Apartment Association, a statewide organization representing 37,400 units and 21 management companies here in Pittsburgh. I'd like to begin the testimony by thanking the bill sponsors for their commitment to keeping residents safe from any potential lead poisoning, and personally thank Councilmember Gross for taking time to meet with us this summer as well. The legislation before you today is an important one, and while I know no one is opposed to keeping residents, especially children, safe, We'd like to share a few points of concern on this legislation for your consideration. Our first concern is regarding how inspections for lead-based hazards occur, as the legislation allows a visual assessment for deteriorated paint surfaces, including the exterior areas, which would include the cornice of the building or exterior windowsills. While the added language around the demolition work plans does address some concerns, any demolition of a lead positive building in a nearby area could still result in a positive test on the exterior of a property of a neighboring building, even though no lead dust is found within the interior of the property. We would urge you to consider what exterior areas should be tested, given some areas are not easily accessible to residents or even the public, for example, the cornice of a building. The dust wipe sampling process allows an inspector the ability to quickly capture a snapshot of any lead, and we would urge you to consider a process for buildings inspections that allow a certain percentage of units to be inspected, and if they're returned lead safe, allow the building in its entirety to be deemed lead safe. As currently written, dust wipes would be taken from floors, windowsills, and entryways, entry rooms, bedrooms, and living rooms. And in a building that may have 100 units and 100 requests to be inspected, this process could take days and even weeks to complete, still yielding the same results. We would also urge you to consider lead-free designation for buildings. While the retaliation section of the ordinance is there to deter bad actors, for those good landlords who have a legitimate reason for an eviction, whether it be non-payment of rent, damage to property, drug-related activity, or other legitimate factors, it raises several concerns with the presumptions clause. Rather than adding this section in, we would urge you to let a judge or human relations commission decide if it was unlawful retaliation rather than presuming. Lastly, the costs associated to remediation of any lead, we would urge this legislative body to create a fund to help landlords and property owners offset the cost of this remediation, as well as extending the window of repair from 30 to 60 days, given landlords may not be financially in a place to afford repairs, as many are still applying for ERAP. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I look forward to working with you all on the legislation.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Taylor Musil, followed by Kevin Quisenberry.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to confirm I could be heard. Good morning, my name is Taylor Musil. I am the Health Policy Manager at Women for a Healthy Environment, and we're a Pittsburgh-based nonprofit that addresses environmental hazards in homes, schools, and early learning spaces that harm public health. I am also a resident of Observatory Hill on the north side. And today, as a member of the Get the Lead Out Pittsburgh campaign, I would like to speak, like many have already, to the recently introduced Pittsburgh lead safety law. I do want to start and definitely commend and applaud Council for taking this step and prioritizing the issue of lead poisoning for the last several years and taking the historical step towards preventing lead exposure at the source. And I can say after our event during National Lead Poisoning Prevention Week, titled Life Without Lead, shortly after the introduction, there were many leaders from across the region and across the nation that tuned in and are definitely inspired by Pittsburgh's initiative to join the dozens of other cities that are implementing lead ordinances. And so I hope that in this monumental moment, especially the city who for our lead ordinance is admired for being so comprehensive in addressing every source of lead, that we do our best to make this the most protective and just piece of legislation in the final vote. And so I will spare you of going through every single point that we would like to be fixed, because I echo all of the partners that have spoke already today. But I will, emphasize that it is very important to inspect child occupied spaces, and that visual inspections that occur on the outside of rental units won't require testing the percentage of lead within the paint, just looking for visibly, obviously chipping, crocodiling, peeling paint on the outside. And I'm absolutely, as Andre spoke before, in favor of establishing resources for homeowners as well as low-income landlords to make sure that these costs can be either subsidized or covered in full. And I will note that of the cities that have done this before, the average cost for interim controls, so not completely abating lead, but just getting a unit to a place where it's lead safe and complies with these requirements, the average cost is around $200. And I, will add as well to the lead service line replacements piece. We would love to see a ban on partial lead line replacements because we know that those practices are taking place by water authorities that are also operating within the city that are outside of PWSA. So with that, I will say that I am looking forward to working together to create the most preventative and protective lead ordinance as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kevin Quisenberry, followed by Laura Suller.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Kevin Quisenberry. I'm the litigation director with the Community Justice Project, which is a nonprofit law firm in the Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network. I work here in our downtown Pittsburgh office, and my comments today are made on behalf of myself, my organization, and as a member of the Get the Lead Out Pittsburgh campaign. My comments are focused on the Pittsburgh Lead Safety Law, Bill 2021-2101, introduced by Council 2 weeks ago. My comments echo those of my colleagues. This is a very important bill, and we commend you for introducing it. However, there were some significant changes, made to the bill before it was introduced that seriously limit the bill's effectiveness in preventing lead exposure, lead poisoning. And I want to highlight the key problems and ask that you correct these problems and then enact the bill. First, as introduced, lead inspections required by the bill will only happen via the city's proposed rental registry program. This has the effect of eliminating inspections for lead hazards in child-occupied facilities, which is extremely important and has always been a key element of the bill. In addition, the current bill limits lead inspections to the periodic 3-year inspections proposed in the rental registry program. And instead of this, PLI should inspect for lead hazards in pre-1978 rental dwellings and child-occupied facilities whenever PLI is inspecting these properties, as was originally intended. Second, under the current language of the bill, the lead inspection protocols of the ordinance are, quote, not to exceed applicable law. This could be a major problem under this provision because there is no other applicable law that already requires inspection for lead hazards. The lead inspection provision of the Pittsburgh Lead Safety Law may be subject to challenge and effectively nullified. Third, with the revisions made to the ordinance, the city excluded itself from having to ensure that renovations, repairs, and painting in its own facilities are conducted in an EPA certified lead safe manner, which is also a major problem. Fourth, by removing the general enforcement provision in the proposed law, there's now no mechanism to enforce compliance with the demolition and RRP requirements in the ordinance. Fifth, to echo the comments of others, if at all possible, this ordinance should include financial assistance or incentives to help homeowners and small landlords make repairs that address lead hazards. If income and property tax incentives are unavailable, then the city should just create a fund using CDBG, ARPA, or a combination of sources. And of course, we can help to approach philanthropy to leverage any public funds. Finally, the legislation should prohibit or otherwise effectively address partial lead water service line replacements by all water providers in the city. It is a major pathway of risk and exposure. In conclusion, on behalf of myself and the Get the Lead Out campaign, we ask council to amend the bill to correct these problems, and once corrected, enact this important legislation. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Laura Suller, followed by Joy Brunstein. You're currently on mute, Ms. Suller. There you go.
Good morning.
Good morning. You
Am I being heard? Good
Yes.
morning. My name is Laura. This is my very first time on this forum. My comment is extremely different from that of everything else I've heard this morning. I, like everyone who is privy to this comment, want to live a long and healthy life. However, in April of last year, at the height of this global pandemic, that was stripped away from me. I went into the ER for help. I trusted the medical field to assist me with an issue that I went in there for. only to leave with, unbeknownst to me at the time, off and on continual pain and discord that has continued to wreak havoc in my body ever since. The last 19 months, I have been back and forth and in and out of the ER repeatedly, blatantly turned away at every turn. I have sought help from many. The city county public forum is just another avenue that I've reached out to for help. It is my prayer that some human being listening to this forum will find the courage to step out from among everyone else that is completely aware of what I'm going through and dealing with and help another human being live. Everything I reach out to and every avenue I take, I'm being turned away, even so much as to even publish my novel that has been completely finished since June of this year. No one will accept anything that I'm reaching for. It is clear to me what I'm dealing with. It is clear to me that everyone is aware. I'm asking for help. That is the reason for my call. Thank you for all who are listening.
Thank you. Our last registered speaker is Joy Brunstein.
Good morning, esteemed council members. My name is Joy Bronstein. I am a resident of Squirrel Hill and the mother of 2 young children. I also work for Clean Water Action as their Western Pennsylvania Director of Policy and Development, and I'm a member of the Get the Lead Out campaign. I can't thank you enough for allowing me to speak today, and thank you for your hard work and commitment to the safety of our city. Thank you for trying to make our children safe. You have a whole lot more work to do, however, given that hundreds of children a year in our city are diagnosed with lead poisoning. And it's within your power to stop this tragedy from continuing. I've been part of a team, along with colleagues who have spoken today, working on this issue for the last couple of years. And I was shocked to find out that as we celebrated the introduction of the Pittsburgh Lead Safety Ordinance, which has been spoken about this morning so eloquently by so many of my colleagues, that a number of potential protections for children had stripped the effectiveness of this Pittsburgh lead safety law down to almost nothing. I won't get into repeating all of those sections of the bill that my colleagues spoke to that should be reinstated, but I would like to urge you to, in due haste, bring this bill back to its original intent, amend these sections so that there's effective protection for children from lead poisoning in our city, and pass this law, because every day we wait, there are more children being impacted by lead in Pittsburgh. Thank you.
Thank you. That exhausts our list of registered speakers. Is there anyone else here with us today wishing to speak before City Council? Please come forward. Is there anyone else with us today? If not, that exhausts our speakers list. We now need a motion to waive the rules of council to add proclamations to our agenda.
So moved.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Proclamations have been added. President Smith?
Thank you, Councilman. And can we have the veterans come forward? We're going to do the proclamation up here. The clerk is going to read it, and then we're going to take a photo with all of council members. So do you want to come over here around where the clerk is? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so.
Let's share.
Yeah, we'll all go up. Let's all go up now.
Up here, sir.
Show me, Anthony.
We can stand on the step. I'll hit you. Oh, okay. Yeah, how about you?
You wanna say a few words?
That's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
Council President Cal Smith presents, whereas the Federation of War Veteran Societies, Inc. of Allegheny County, the Federation, and the City of Pittsburgh will hold its 101st Annual Veterans Day Parade on Thursday, November 11th at 10:30 a.m., starting on Liberty Avenue near the Greyhound Bus Station. And whereas the Federation's mission is to perpetuate the memory of the signing of the armistice on November 11th, 1918, marking the end of World War I, and to honor all veterans of all United States wars with patriotic rallies and parades, and to teach and foster true patriotism and allegiance to the United States of America. And whereas the City of Pittsburgh does hereby call upon all its citizens to observe November 11th as Veterans Day and to honor all war veterans and solemnly remember the sacrifice of all those who fought so valiantly to preserve our heritage of freedom. And now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Pittsburgh does hereby recognize and honor all veterans for their bravery and courage, and commends the Federation of War Veteran Societies, Inc. of Allegheny County for their continued dedication and hard work in making each Veterans Day parade a great success. And be it further resolved that the Council of the City of Pittsburgh does hereby declare Thursday, November 11th, 2021 to be the Federation of War Veteran Societies of Allegheny County Day in the City of Pittsburgh.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to approve in a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Proclamation's approved. I just want to say a few words. I just want to thank you for all that you do to make sure that the Veterans Day Parade happens every year. I know how difficult it's been. But I also want to talk about how the veterans and how the military in general is changing. It's changing tremendously. Over 40% of the people now entering the military are immigrants, women, and minorities. And so I think that although a lot of times we see our great veterans who are here today, it doesn't always reflect the diversity within the military. And I want people to realize that there are people that participate in Juneteenth events and across the city that are tremendous. And we really do have a very diverse military, and I want to thank everyone for their service to the city of Pittsburgh and to our country, and for all that you've done. If it weren't for you building the foundation that you have built, we won't be where we are today. So thank you for all that you've done to protect our country and to protect our freedoms.
Thank you very much.
God bless you. I'm going to let you say a few words. Mr. Tom Kusick, here, come over here. So you can take your mask
Just to
down.
read here.
You can take your mask.
This is from the Federation of War Veterans Society of Allegheny County, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The Veterans Parade will be held on Thursday, November 11th, which is actually Veterans Day. The Federation of War Veterans Society of Allegheny County and the City of Pittsburgh will conduct this parade as always. The Federation would like you to invite everyone to come to the parade and pay homage to the veterans who have defended our country. The Pittsburgh Veterans Day Parade has occurred for 102 consecutive years, and it is the oldest parade in the country. We will have all service color guard this year, leading the parade, representing 6 branches of the military. And for the first time, the Space Force will be in the honor guard. Okay, and the Grand Marshal of the parade will be Brigadier General Maureen Weigel. She's the PA, Department of Military and Veterans Affairs Deputy Adjutant General. The General Weigel is the first female Grand Marshal of the Veterans Day Parade. This parade will be held downtown Pittsburgh as always. The parade will start at 10:30 at Liberty, at 10th and Liberty, and will proceed down Liberty Avenue to the apex of Liberty and Penn Avenues. Please tell all your friends and neighbors to come out and enjoy the parade and show the support for the country's veterans. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to take a photo with all council. I just want to say thank you again for all that you've done for our country. I don't think you always get the respect that you deserve. And I want to thank you for all that you've done and putting yourselves in line and of harm's way to make sure that our freedoms were protected.
Thank you. We can always depend on you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can council members please join us? Do you have a mic, Kim? Is there a microphone up there? It's up here.
Yes, ma'am. I don't know, we'll see. Does it work? I missed this bad boy.
Could you please just tell us who you're joined with? I can't get the mic over. I apologize. Do you know who everyone is who's here? Would you introduce the people that are here? Tell us who's here. Do you mind? Would you tell us who's here?
Some of the people I know, some of them I don't.
Okay.
There's something wrong with that. You're taking it.
How do we introduce them? Are those microphones on? Are those microphones on? How about go over to my microphone where I'm sitting and then just introduce them. People can raise their hand. Could you do that? I don't think you can reach it.
There's one going.
Here, can you speak up?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. My name's Philip A. Fumero Jr. I'm here with Albert Burkowski and some of our other members from the DAV. We appreciate everybody being here today. Yeah. I'm with the Department of Pennsylvania. I'm chairman of Ways and Means Committee. I'm chairman of the Homeless Committee. I'm also on the Legislative and Executive Committee. I'm past district commander for the DAV, past adjutant for 12 years, deputy director for all of Southwestern Pennsylvania. I'm the past commander for Chapter 76. I'm the DEC, puts me on the Executive Committee for Pennsylvania. And I'm the liaison or chapter service officer, plus I'm on the Veterans Advisory Committee for Washington County. Thank you.
And I'll do it next. Hi, my name's Tony Ficcari. I'm National Commander for the Italian American War Veterans with my National Quartermaster, Bill Lowe, and the rest of the staff. Good morning. My name's Albert Burlakowski. I'm the past commander for the Federation and past commander for the Disabled American Veterans Department of Pennsylvania. I want to give a shout out to Vic Silk and his wife for the tremendous job that they have done for getting the parade organized. It's been 2 years, and we know why it's been delayed for 2 years. But Dick and his wife did a tremendous job organizing it and getting all the units into the parade. Thank you and have a great day.
Good morning. I'm Jessie Ferrari, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you. I'm with Tony and the Italian.
Tony has come up and sing his name.
Yes.
Good morning. Bill Lowe with the Italian American War Veterans.
Luigi Mercurio with Italian American War Veterans.
My name is Paul Cusick from the Three Rivers Leatherneck Detachment of the Marine Corps League, Vietnam veteran.
My name is Mike Books. I'm a member of the VFW and I'm a past commander for the War Veteran Society.
My name's Tom Cusick. I would just like to reiterate what Al was saying and really thank Al for his help doing this whole system here. Him and Mike Books are back here and Dick Silk and his wife Mary Lou. They really helped me get through this thing this year. And in fact, I couldn't have done it without. I didn't know what I was doing. They did it all. And they just asked me to come up and say something. So I'm saying it for them. Thank you.
Got it, Dick.
No. I'm Dick Silk and we represent the Federation here. And I just want to say one word. The person that took care of this for years, Tony, did this for 30 years. And right now he's just getting ready to get out of a home. He's been disabled for the last few months, but Tony Filardi is getting out next week. We're looking forward to seeing him. I just saw him yesterday. He's pretty happy about getting out. And I just thought I'd say one other thing. I don't know whether you're aware of this. You know, when these comedians run out of jokes and they wind up at the fabric store, do you know the reason for that? Well, they need new material. It wasn't good. I know that. It was not good. I admit that. It was not good. Some are worse than others, and I admit that. So, but I want to say one other thing. No. There's the person that really did a lot of job here, and she is our rock, and she did the work, and she should get the credit for that. But this is for everybody. It's a great group, and it's an honor to be a part of it. And thank you for having us.
Thank you for keeping your joke down to one. I just have to tell you, every time I see him, he comes up with those jokes, those one-line jokes, and like Laffy Taffy jokes or whatever. And the last time he was here, I gave him the mic and he panicked because he didn't think he was going to actually have the time to do it. So he was ready this time. It's a great job. Thank you for all the laughs and for all that you do. Let's get a photo. Can you come in for the photo? All of you? But yeah, come in. You too. You too.
Unfortunately.
If you think you're taking a picture of me from behind, you've got another. Good. Thank you all. See you Saturday. Thank you. Or Thursday. Thursday. If you can come support the veterans on Thursday for the parade, please stop downtown, 10:30 a.m. at 10th and Liberty. Councilman Kraus is a huge supporter of the veterans.
We have a stop and play tap, so, we'll tell them down there at the beginning of the parade.
Yes, we'll get you copies of all this.
I know Carmella,
We'll get you lots of copies.
she called me this
How many
morning.
copies? 100? I'll get you 100.
Everybody here gonna get one?
Yeah, let me get my
Give me 10 more.
I'll get you. I'll get you like.
Okay, yeah, well, I can pass them out at a-
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You see my brother?
Are you? Oh, nice. Oh, nice. Oh, wow. You know what that's like. Thank you for your service. Thank you. You too.
Yeah, okay.
I get them.
Yeah, the clerk is gonna get you a CD.
Okay. Am I gonna wait here?
No, she's gonna send it to you. Can you make sure she has it? I'll make sure she has your.
Churches. They just ask the right person, they get things right. But we've number of churches.
Yeah.
Does anyone have to get his address?
Get your glasses fogged up.
Get up and give them some receipt. Come on. We're veterans.
Thank you very much.
I know, but I know what you said too. Wow. Did you ever see the groups that come for Juneteenth? Did you ever see them? No, what are they called? They're called something. There's a couple of
You
them.
talking about the young men who drum and all that?
No, but the ones with the planes.
Oh. I forget what it's called.
I want to get them to come to this party. Thank you, thank you. We'll get you. I love you guys. We'll get you guys a copy of the. God bless you. Thank you. How are you doing? How are you? God bless you. I think about you all the time. Thanks, guys. Yeah. I mean, he was like Bruce, like that. Like one day he was like walking around like Bruce. The next day he was like that. The guy with the walk. Yeah. So sad. So many kids.
So.
Bye, thank you.
So that now takes us back to our standing committee agenda.
Now the real work starts.
Sorry. They're so cute.
And we'll need. Ready? And will the clerk please take the roll?
Reverend Burgess. Mr. Coghill.
Mr. Coghill?
Mr. Coghill. Ms. Gross. Mr. Kraus.
Here.
Mr. O'Connor. Mrs. Kel Smith.
Right here.
Ms. Strasburger.
Here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Lavelle, Chair.
Here.
8 members present.
Thank you. That takes us to our first committee of the day, which is Finance and Law, which is chaired by myself. Our first deferred paper is Bill 57.
Bill 57, ordinance amending the City of Code of Ordinances, Title II, Fiscal Article 5, Special Funds, Chapter 237, the City Park Tax Fund to conform with the Home Rule Charter, Article 9, in order to establish the creation of the Pittsburgh Parks Trust Fund.
Motion to hold 1 week. Correct? 1 week?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill be held 1 week. Bill 2091.
Bill 2091, Resolution authorizing the issuing of 2 warrants in the total sum of $495,000, which shall be allocated and paid as follow: $200,000 made payable to Brandon Furman and $295,000 made payable to Tucker Arisberg in final settlement related to litigation at USDC.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Our first new paper is Bill 2119.
Bill 2119, resolution providing the sale of certain property acquired by the city of Pittsburgh at tax sale item A through F, 1380 Montezuma, 1382, 1384, and 1384 Montezuma, 215 Child Fund, and 1612 Brighton.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 2120.
Bill 2120, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Finance on behalf of the city to enter into a temporary construction easement and permanent easements with the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority on certain parcels of real property located on Toboggan Street and Rising Main Avenue in the 25th Ward of the city.
Motion approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Although there is an amendment, I believe we can read Bill 2133, 2134, and 2135 together.
Bill 2133, resolution amending and supplementing resolution number 844, effective December 23rd, entitled Resolution Establishing the All-In Cities Investment Fund to facilitate and prioritize investments made by the Greater Pittsburgh Affordable Housing Fund. Bill number 2134, resolution establishing an affordable housing grade as part of Pittsburgh's annual housing plan pursuant to resolution number 650 of 2021, effective October 11 of 2021. Bill number 2135, resolution establishing the Greater Pittsburgh Affordable Housing Trust Implementation Committee.
Second.
Second. Discussion. Councilman Burgess.
Want to stop him?
First of all, I would like to, it's a technical amendment, but I'd like to amend Bill 2134.
We are unable to hear you, Reverend Burgess.
Count your blessings. Just kidding.
The first thing I want to do is amend Bill 2134. It's a technical amendment. It is amendment by substitution, but it just defines some things, and it's not significant.
Second with discussion.
Yes.
Discussion on the amendment.
Councilwoman Gross, I think.
So if you'll permit me, section 5, you clarify that the first 10% of each of the projects should be affordable for households whose incomes are at or below 50% of the area median income. That's wonderful. It's consistent with our LRTA. It's consistent with the current inclusionary zoning, but you don't further qualify the line that's at the end of section 6, which I think should, unless it maybe applies to all, which is at, it's 50% of their area median income without spending more than 30% of their monthly income in rent or housing payments. And so you include that in section 6, right, where you say an affordable housing unit is defined as a housing unit that a household whose income is at or below 80% of area median income can afford without spending more than 30% of their monthly income in rent or housing payments. So are we to infer that while the first 10% of the units at 50% AMI, so you're leaving open when you get like the additional 5% or the additional 10% over the first 10%? Or is those additional increments are at the 80%?
So the intent, although again, I'm going to hold so we can modify it. I'll work with you with different language.
Yeah.
Let me tell you the intent. The intent is to make sure that the first 10% of affordable housing is at the 50% and below, period. Right? So that, yes, that's exactly right. That part's true. It's assumed though. I assumed, and again, we can
we can, that's a friendly amendment. We can add that in either now or later. But that the goal is that I think the project that I'm most pleased with is actually the Giant Eagle project in Shadyside. I think that's the gold standard, right? Where they have
I think they canceled that because they didn't get their height bonus.
they have approved this, the deal has been approved in terms of 10%. And Ms. Strasburger is here. She can explain.
I would love an update because I thought they got denied at ZBA and so it was
But they-
off.
They did it internally. My understanding is they did it internally and the project's back on and they did it in a way that was approved by right. So they don't have to get ZBA approval, I think, but it's not my district. I'm not the expert, but I think the idea is, and you'll see this consistent in all three pieces of legislation. I was going to talk about it broadly and I will still in a minute, but the idea is to start talking about affordable housing across all developments, not just affordable housing in African American communities, but all development that we have in the city. Let's talk about what affordable housing looks like. And the first 10% should be to the most vulnerable, 50% and below. But then I think once you hit the 10% mark, then you can do other types of workforce development, which is 60 to 80%, right? Because I think that also is a need.
Well, we're waiting for the market analysis from planning and we haven't seen it yet. I thought should be done, but when we will see, right, that there are multiple different market segments of what needs what kinds of units, whether, and as well intersected by whether it's family units or single units, et cetera.
And I'm open, again, I'm open to amendments.
Yeah,
This
and
was- this is-
if I may, one more. Section 3 is also kind of inconsistent with other things we have in place because it says city containing over 25 units and our other overlay has 20.
So I got this from the affordable housing. Yeah, but I got it from the affordable housing. I took 25 from the affordable. This is modeled after the Affordable Housing Task Force language.
Sure.
And so,
It's
and I'm
about
not,
5 years out of date now,
but I'm not, all these are friendly amendments.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to work with you over the next few weeks to craft them.
So we could, you could amend today and then we could amend more or
The one, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm
kind of
I can do either one.
going to hold it anyway. And I would
So-
like those, I kind of can't tell here on live TV whether
about-
the questions are already covered or if there's.
How about if I withdraw the amendment and then we'll work on it together and come up with an amendment that we're both comfortable with.
And just for the record, we only got this right before council. We've had it here on the table. So yeah, happy to support that.
So, let me,
So just for clarity, you made a motion to withdraw?
I motion to withdraw the written amendment.
So the motion has, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion has been withdrawn. So now we're on the three bills.
So for a variety of reasons over the last few months, I have been looking through everything through my lens of faith, although I always have. It's been intensified and I've been articulating that. I look forward to Eddie Gainey becoming the next mayor in January. I look forward to working with him, as I've said publicly and privately, that in Israel's history, you have a lot of doom and gloom in Israel, right? Where the people fall short of God's commandments, and then you have these prophets, and then you had these corrupt kings, and all these things that were bad. But every now and then, God would rise up, a good king or a good judge, and really was a symbol of God's power and presence. And I've said this privately to Ed, and I'll say this publicly, that perhaps Ed's ascendancy is a symbol, a sign of hope for the Black community and hope for all of Pittsburgh. And of course, I grew up with his father and his uncle, and was at their house, his grandmother's house on Bennett Street many, many times, and look forward to working with him. The My favorite quotation from literature is Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities. He said it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I have been thinking for several years this question: how can America's most livable city for white people, white Americans, be simultaneously the least livable city for Black people? That question has been in my head. Well, what I realized recently is they're connected. They're not separate. They're intertwined. And the way they're intertwined is they are the both consequence of the pursuit of maximum profit. The pursuit of maximum profit is doing two things in Pittsburgh in terms of Black people. It is destroying the Black community, and it is systematically whole-scale displacing Black people. Thousands of Black people have left, right? And so what are the factors? We see in the community, we've proven discriminatory lending. Not a bank representative has pushed back because they know they're doing it. The most awful statistic is of all the banks that have done loans in the city of Pittsburgh, the majority have never lent to a Black person. That sounds like that can't be right, but it's absolutely right. Of all the banks giving loans in Pittsburgh, the majority of the banks have never given a loan to one Black person. So we have discriminatory lending, we have substandard housing, we have segregated neighborhoods, we have concentrated poverty, we have urban violence, we have failing schools, and we have the lack of essential amenities. So how do we solve it, right? I've spent 14 years of my life trying to figure that out. I look forward to the new administration. And so what my attempt and intend to do is to say, well, here's what I know. You know, Mr. Mayor, this is what I've worked on. This is what I know to do. Mr. Lavelle and I, we kind of agreed this is what we can do. And it's really not about plans. We have the plan. It's not about planning. We know the plan. We know exactly how to do this, right? HUD gave us the way to do it. It's easy. It's a 3-step process that you invest in housing, new housing. So you transform these awful neighborhoods into mixed income neighborhoods with mixed income housing. Second of all, you invest in people. You improve the outcomes of the households living in these areas with income, employment, health, education. And third of all, you put the amenities in those neighborhoods. That's the choice model. You put the amenities in the neighborhoods so that they have good schools and grocery stores and commercial activities, and the Avenues of Hope is part of that. So we know that's what works. So what you have in front of you are 3 things that are interconnected, but 3 parts of saying what the solution is. The first one, which I think is maybe the most important, is to create a city, county. What the legislation does is it, and we know that it will be enacted with the new mayor, but the idea is it creates a panel that will investigate the possibility of creating the Greater Pittsburgh Affordable Housing Trust, modeled after the Columbus Affordable Housing Trust. All across the country, cities are doing this. So you're saying what? So the problem is there is not enough government money to build enough housing. There are 20,000 units that we need. Government can't build it. You got to get the private market involved. The private market will not get involved on its own. You need to leverage it. Now, you need to come up with a big number. You need to come up with something between $100 to $200 million. So how do you do that? We do it's easy. First of all, you create the trust. You create it at a professional organization outside of government. There are times the government does things really, really well, but this one, you need professionals to do it. And it would be a financial institution that you're creating. We can take half of the Housing Opportunity Fund that we put in every year, take $5 million, something that Councilman Lavelle and I have been talking about for years, create a bond of about at least $50 million. You put it into this fund. You challenge the county to put $50 million into the fund. You also then challenge the private sector who has the money. You challenge the private sector who has the money. This would not be grant program. This would be a revolving loan fund. And what it would almost do overnight is jumpstart affordable housing. We would be able to build thousands of brand new units almost overnight. So the one bill calls for the exploration of establishing that fund. The other two bills are companions, and they do something different. One of the bills is simply amends a bill that we already passed, calling for all in cities funds to provide the people part of this, right? This would be the grant programs that would go with this, with the housing, but provide after school programming and job training and all the other amenities that we need. And it creates a vehicle for those dollars to come and be targeted where this housing development is. And then third of all, and this is something that I was going to amend, but we'll wait to talk about it, and that is to create an affordable housing scorecard. So it's interesting, it's interesting. When I talk to developers, they're simply doing what the banks will give them money to do. The banks will only give them money mostly to gentrify Black communities and to exclude Black people. I want to give a shout out to Councilwoman Gross. She has been saying this for years. You're right about this. When you have these large developments,
Did he say you were right?
when you have these,
It's recorded.
when you have these large developments, right? With no government subsidy, what they're basically doing is building segregated housing. There are almost no Black people in these huge units in Lawrenceville, for instance, or in Southside Flats. They're not segregated by design, they're not bad people, but by having no affordable housing and the way our city is segregated, for the most part, you're pretty much guaranteed to get segregated houses, which means you may get 3% Black people in it, right? They're going to be mostly segregated housing. And so when I push back, the other bill that we have that's planning, there's no one that can stop them. There's no one to stop them. The Planning Commission can't stop them. It doesn't have the power to do it. It's not one of their criteria. The mayor doesn't have the power to stop them. The only person that can stop them from gentrifying our communities is this council. There is no other entity that can stop them. They're doing it every day. Every day, in the pursuit of maximum profits, they are building these large-scale, segregated, profit-driven models. And at the same time, these models are eating up the Black community. They are gentrifying it, they are destroying the Black community, and Black people are moving out. It is going to be the end of the Black community if we do something to save it. So then what this does is give a score now. A, B, C, D. It's easy, right? If you have at least 10% of affordable housing at 50% or not in your development, that's a C grade. That's something you should do. No one should have, no one should have these segregated maximum profit buildings, 300-400 units at, 2,000, 3,000 a pop. And we know that there are barriers, right? And so those are D's and F's. And it gives a scorecard so that we have a vehicle in order to judge these developments. Now, I'm telling you, I'm gonna lay my card on the table. I'm not voting for them again. I'm not voting for a sewer module. I'm not voting for land use model. I am not voting for a single thing for these large scale, segregated, greedy banks and developers who are destroying the Black community and excluding Black people. I'm not voting on one more project like that. I look forward to the new mayor because, this is what he wants to do. So I want to share with him the tools to actually get it done. And so that's what the three things do. One, it creates a trust with the goal of raising at least $100 to $200 million in a revolving loan fund, city, county, that we can jumpstart affordable housing all throughout our city. Second of all, it creates a scoring card of all development, so we can see if these developments are fair and equitable, or are they simply byproducts of segregation, racism, discrimination and destruction of the Black community and Black people. And third of all, it changes or just corrects the fund that we already created so that we can put money into people in places where we put these new developments. So when we put affordable housing development, we have to wrap around it the money for people and the money for the amenities of the neighborhood. This is the choice model. In Larmer, the choice model created by the Obama-HUD administration, this model is the most effective model of building affordable housing and transforming the lives of people, particularly Black people in the history of our country. And so we should replicate it in Pittsburgh. I lay it at the table as what I know to do. I'm hopeful that the next mayor will take this, because at the end of the day, and Mr. Lavelle can say it probably better than me, at the end of the day, it's only one thing that's needed. We don't need new studies. We don't need new ideas. We need money. This is all about resources. Will we put the money into the Black communities, or will the banks continue, because of their redlining and their discriminatory and racist practices, putting all their money into Squirrel Hill, South Side, and Shady Side? That's the challenge. Can we force them, leverage them to put their money into the Black community? And if we're not going to put additional new money at this massive scale into the Black community, you might as well burn it now, because that's what's going to happen to it. It's going to burn up. How's it going to burn up? It's going to be displaced. Black people are leaving in droves. They will continue to leave. And then the banks, the greedy banks, will give white developers money to gentrify those communities because they want the land. That's the future. We've seen it happen in East Liberty. We've seen it happen in Lawrenceville. It's going to happen in Homewood. It's going to happen everywhere unless we do something. And that's what's going to happen. Wilkinsburg, if we, that's the goal. The people in Wilkinsburg, that's really the only value of Wilkinsburg, is to take, because of its proximity to the suburbs. That's why those who are championing that's actually behind the scenes. Their goal is to gentrify it, and we know that. We're not stupid. So I'm going to ask for a hold for a post agenda. Thank you for this moment to lay them out. I'll hold for a post agenda, and we'll bring in experts to have this conversation other than me, to share with you that this is the only way to rescue Black communities.
All right, so I have Councilman Wilson, followed by Councilwoman Strasburger.
Thank you, Chair. I don't see how I'm going to get through this unless I have an interrogatory with Councilman Burgess. I just want to ask a question about the funds. You have like 50 to 150 million from different, like our government, other governments. What's the thought there?
Okay, so you have to create a fund large enough that you can take part of it and do revolving loans, both pre-development loans and investment in affordable housing, right? We can't afford to do it. The city doesn't have enough money to do it, right? So you need to put multiple funds and sources.
Yeah, but even the 50,
we can do it from
even the 50 million.
We do it for a bond.
I just wanted to get that clear.
No, we do it for a bond. We take half of we don't need any new income. We can take half of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is $5 million. We can go to bond for 15 years and get roughly about $50 million and put that $50 million in the trust fund. The county easily can do the same. And then you can challenge the corporate community and the banking community that's redlining, that's doing discriminatory practices, and we know they are, to challenge them to put their money in this fund. And the thing I've heard from them is it has to be regional, and it can't be in government. It has to have a professional, autonomous, independent entity. You do those two things. Now, that's what they've done in Columbus. They've done it across the country. This is not a new idea, but this is an idea that will work, can work. In fact, it's the only way. If you don't do this, I don't see another way. I've looked at this for everything else we've done has failed. We have to stop them from creating these gentrified developments, and then we have to put money in the Black community.
So my concern is that we're going to lose focus on all the vacant abandoned property that we need to like invest in to actually like clear these titles, get them going. And I mean, in all these communities, in my communities, everyone's plagued by vacant abandoned property. And so to even get to the point of where we're going to be invested in, affordable housing, it's like, I just don't want to lose focus on how much we need to really solve that issue and invest in that issue, because I mean, that's really what's pulling down a lot of my communities is all this vacant abandoned property.
That's the land bank, and I agree with you. We need multiple tools in the toolbox. You got to do multiple things. You got to chew gum, walk at the same time. This is one of them. Again, I'm going to hold for a post agenda and a public hearing, and we can go just a post agenda, and then we can really go at it with some experts. That's my goal.
Thank you. Councilwoman Strasburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Reverend Burgess, thank you for the work that you've put into this already. And I support it in spirit. I think I need to learn a little bit more to get a better understanding. And similar to Councilman Wilson's questions, or really your last answer, that this is one tool. One thing that would be helpful for me, I'm not sure if it'd be helpful for others, is sure, you can tell me the answer to this, but really having a visual, either a one-pager or a visual depiction of how this fits into the constellation of other tools and funds that Pittsburgh and the region, but Pittsburgh and its partners already have. So I can understand what this does very clearly, but it would be helpful for me to understand how this will either complement or run parallel to, say, the Housing Opportunity Fund and even the land bank, even though that's somewhat separate, like all the different affordability tools that we already have and the funds that we already have, just seeing it all in one place, even avenues of hope, how they are interrelated or might complement one another. If that's something that your staff can work on, or if, we can co-create together, that would be incredibly helpful, I think, for council members who are going to be voting on this and also the public.
Yep, I'll work on it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilman Coghill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Rev, my district, I don't feel has potential right now, even for gentrification. So in many ways, I take your opinion, Councilwoman Gross, or these neighborhoods have seen this firsthand. When we talk about affordable housing, just give me an idea as to, are we talking about home ownership or are we talking about rental?
All the above. In fact, Anthony, this movement would create more money in your district. Part of the problems is, and this is the dirty secret, they're not just not investing in Black communities, they're not investing in poor white communities either, or middle class or lower middle class white communities either. Like in parts of Teresa's district, part of your district. When you force them to start moving the investment beyond these isolated communities, all of our communities will get differing housing, right? You may need more workforce related housing, right? You may not need the 50%. You may need more 60 to 80%. But what this does is it will jumpstart, once they can no longer put all their money into these small neighborhoods and oversaturate them financially, then they will now be open to going into Sheridan and going into Fairview and going into Beechwood, and because the financial model actually is greater to be in your district than it is to be in African American districts. There's just not the incentive to do it. That's a short answer, but that's true. I'll work on with Erica and the council. I'll work on a sort of spreadsheet that explains kind of how all this works.
So Rev, really, if I'm hearing you right, we're talking about, like you said, $50 to $200 million, really to do it ourselves, is what you're saying, because you can't rely on the banks because they're not going to change their ways because they're for profit.
It's to get the banks to put their money into a fund that they can get, a loan fund where they can, because they have the money to do it. They're right now not doing it. They're not putting money into affordable housing and other than tax credits. And so what you do is you create a fund and you challenge them in very clear terms to put their redevelopment dollars into this revolving loan fund that they can't argue against. And they've done it across the country. They'll do it here.
Yeah, and you know, Rev, when I look at Bakery Square and other, you know, projects throughout the city, I understand completely what you're saying, you know, and it's I think, a difficult problem to tackle, especially when you need cooperation from private industry, who's really just worried about the bottom line. But when we think about housing overall, you know, affordable housing throughout the city, for me, it all starts with job opportunities for the lowest income neighborhoods in order for them to, you know, purchase a house. I'm a strong believer in home ownership because you keep that wealth in your family. You know, so when we talk about that type of dollars, $200 million, I would like to see the bulk of it go into home ownership. And whether it's creating our own financing, you know, department in order for people who don't quite qualify because of their job history or whatever it might be. I think the bottom line here is home ownership, and I would like to see the bulk of any monies for affordable housing go toward that. That's it. If you want to respond, that's fine.
I agree. I don't think there are a lot of, if you make it all home ownership, you exclude 80% of Black people. So you can't make it all home ownership because Black people are not, unfortunately, are not homeowners. You want to move that needle, but you want to do it over time. So you want to give them high quality, affordable housing right now they can rent, and then prepare them through jobs and training to home ownership in the back end. You're exactly right. You got to do it over time. You can't do it right now. So you got to do it over time.
And I understand that you have to have a certain percentage of rental. I'm just saying, I'd like the emphasis to be on home ownership, whether we're financing low-income families or banks, or if we get banks that come around, that would be better yet. But for me, it's everybody's better off with home ownership. But again, it goes back to jobs. It goes back to job opportunities, I feel, number one. But and I'll continue to, you know, listen, I think you all know better than I do because you've witnessed it firsthand in your neighborhoods, most of you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. If Councilwoman Gross.
Just a brief comment, just to repeat into the record that Councilman Burgess just said that I was, instead of arguing against me, he just said you were right for years, that the hyper development, the hyper investment that was happening in my district was also displacing poor people and Black people. Thank you, sir. And that it's good and right for this body to try to manage that development. Now, this table has not always been supportive of my efforts. I do acknowledge and want to thank this body for supporting the inclusionary zoning pilot projects and hopefully the expansion that we're looking to expand to Bloomfield and Polish Hill, because it has resulted in dozens and dozens of units that wouldn't have been there otherwise, but by the private free market. Because of us as a body at Pittsburgh City Council asserting our land use authority. And also, I'm looking at a speech that I presented to the House Democrats nearly 3 years ago. It was January of 2019, which lays this kind of contrasting real estate markets that we have in Pittsburgh. That we have parts of the city represented by you all that are, and some of the members here that are underinvested, that suffer blight and suffer just, you know, even losing population. And then we have the opposite end of the market spectrum where we have parts of the city neighborhoods or entire city council districts like mine that are hyper invested, that are gentrifying, and that have population growth. And it's a very difficult job for us, but it's our rightful job. It's our responsibility to moderate both ends of those market extremes, because I do think that they are connected. That if we had less hyperinvestment and gentrification in some of the neighborhoods, we would have more investment and inclusive development in the neighborhoods that need it. So we spent decades only working on underinvestment and blight. But now that we're also experiencing the over and hyper investment and gentrification, we need to do both in order to get to the healthy space in the middle where the market is functioning for more of the people with both either government assistance or government control. That's what we're here for. And so I look forward to the discussion. what are the details of these bills and whether these are the right moves for us to make? I think we need a lot more discussion to see, but I'm glad that to be engaging in the conversation. So thank you all.
It was a long way to say I was right.
She just wanted to note that.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
On the record.
Second round,
So noted.
Councilman Wilson.
Yeah, I just want to just reiterate and clarify, expand upon what I was talking about. Because I know the Rev said, walk and chew gum. And I think I can do that one thing where you're like go this way on your head and this way on your stomach. And like, so, I mean, if I'm trying to do that, right, I got all this money that we're talking about for this affordable housing. I just like to see it balanced with the vacant abandoned property issue. We put 10 million into the land bank. Really, we need 3 times that to really hire the contract in with, for instance, we're doing the GRB law to contract with them so we can continue to, clear these titles. And really, we should develop a larger model, probably, if we're talking about this, the affordable housing in Pittsburgh, a larger model of how we're, combining the affordable housing money, whether it's HOF or this fund that we're talking about, with the vacant and abandoned property issue, and really do larger, clear a bunch of the titles on these vacant and abandoned streets. I mean, my district's going to have to expand because apparently, people have left. I mean, the jail closed, and that was accounted for, but, maybe by land, I might end up, representing most land in Pittsburgh because my district is a lot of vacant abandoned property that I'm representing. And so we should be doing larger RFPs that are, taking into account all these vacant abandoned properties, putting more resources in there, and then also like combining it with this larger affordable housing conversation. So what I'm saying is I want to walk and chew gum. I want to do the little tap. Oh, it's a tap. It's a tap. And then
Like a
and I rotate. I want to be tapping, rotating, but I just want to see
You are
the
on.
conversation of the vacant abandoned property, like lifted up, to this level
So
where we're actually, continuing to invest in that. So I don't think 10 million is enough at the land bank. I think we need, the staff should be larger. I think, we're having those conversations, but you get my point.
Okay. Anyone else, second round? If not, what I'll simply add is it's not a either or conversation. We actually need to be doing both. And we are finally actually set up to do both, to work on the vacant property. But you also have to remember, part of what the Housing Opportunity Fund can do is also working with the land bank, actually begin fixing up and rehabbing those homes. Because oftentimes the reality is right now, especially if you have government money, you cannot build a home for about less than 300,000. Can't do it. That's not going to solve your affordable housing problem, because in order to build that home and then sell it for affordability, you now need 150,000 worth of subsidy, right? That's not going to do it. So you have to begin rehabbing and dealing with the vacant property in order to address the issue. So it's not an either or, the two have to work together. What I will also simply add is it's not an issue of how to do it. It's an issue of whether or not we're going to provide the resources to do it. The reality is the 10 million that we send to the Housing Opportunity Fund is not enough, right? Half of it is being spent, and I understand why, but half of it is not even being spent on bricks and mortar. Half of it is being spent on social services. Understandably so, but if you're going to address bricks and mortar, you need more, which is why we've had this conversation for the last couple of years about taking out the bond in order to really put all the capital you need. But Reverend Burgess is absolutely right. Even that's not enough because government can't pay for it enough. So you need other dollars at play. So it's not an either or. The other thing I will simply add is as we're having this conversation, we as a body are going to actually need to revisit the Housing Opportunity Fund legislation, because in order to do what Reverend Burgess is suggesting, we're also going to need to extend the payments to the Housing Opportunity Fund. I would suggest increasing them But at a minimum, we're going to need to extend that from the 12-year cycle to a longer one in order to actually be able to finance the bonds. So with that, he's going to motion to hold. So I'll save the rest of my comments for when we have the deeper dive. Reverend Burgess?
I'd like to motion for, I think, a post agenda. I don't know if we need a public hearing. I think a post. I want to motion to hold for a Cablecast post agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And if we could do this together, Councilman
Absolutely.
Lavelle, we could do it together and, invite the guests together. This is right. It's just hard for people to get their arms around it sometimes.
All right, it was motion. All those in favor, we said aye. The all three bills will be held for Cablecast post agenda. We now need a motion to approve the invoices.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Invoices are approved. Now I need a motion to approve the interdepartmental transfers.
So moved.
Need a second.
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 All those in discussion, Councilwoman Gross.
Apologize, it actually is about invoices, if you'll permit. I think it is about P cards. I have it circled. Not required. Actually, it's P cards. Sorry, I was off camera. It actually is about P cards.
Well, let's approve the transfers first then.
And then have discussion after we approve them?
Well, you want to discuss the P cards?
Or next.
Okay, got it. Got it. Yes, thank you.
All right. Any further discussion on the transfers? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Transfers are approved. Now I need a motion to approve the P cards.
Moved.
Second.
Discussion, Councilwoman Gross?
I just wanted, it just caught my eye, and maybe this is actually more relevant to invoices and not P cards. I just can't remember. We don't even have to answer it now. I just kind of wanted to say it into the record. I can't remember what limits there are for spending. I feel like these are all spending by right.
5,000.
5,000.
I just noticed that there are in the P cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 separate P card deductions to the same person. But it looks like it's for all the same event on the same day. So I don't know if it's problematic or maybe not. It looks like it's all for a track and treat day, but it may not be. I just wanted to know that seemed irregular. And we don't even need to figure it out now. I feel like they're but they're all small amounts. It's just that to have them all in the same week being approved, adding up to probably over $10,000. But are they, maybe, I can't tell, they may be for multiple different events, which would make sense. But they're all to one person. And they seem to be invoiced by one vendor consecutively. And they're for Parks and Rec, for fabulous events that we want to support. And we're really, happy. The track and treat from noon to 4, which was in Highland Park. There's another one for a STEM performance. Was that a same event or a different event? They're all, again, there's a teaching artist, but they're all invoiced by the same. It looks like there's a vendor who did do more than a $5,000 invoice. We're just paying for it in 10 parts. So.
Like to have our
Is
budget
it true?
director come forward?
Sure. I don't want to belabor it because we could always find the facts by Tuesday, but if they're available and could quickly dispel my concerns, that would be fantastic.
We'll get Bill.
So we'll ask for our budget director to come to address your questions, Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you.
While we await, can we move on to Public Works Committee?
Absolutely.
So we'll leave P cards open. And we'll move forward to our Public Works Committee chaired by Councilman Coghill. Our first new paper is Bill 2110.
Bill 2110, resolution authorizing the mayor and Director of the Department of Public Works on behalf of the city to enter into an agreement with the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority for coordination of certain work surrounding the operation and maintenance of Liberty Green Park.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 2111.
Bill 2111, Resolution amending Resolution Number 283 entitled Resolution Authorizing the Mayor and Director of the Department of Public Works to apply for grant funding from the PA Department of Community and Economic Development Keystone Communities Grant Program to provide funding for the construction of a community center in the Robert E. Williams Memorial Park, to add language to decrease the amount of the grant, allow the city to accept the grant and spend the funds.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Bill is recommended. Our Budget Director has joined us.
Right here. I just highlighted it right here.
You approve these two.
To the back there.
Nancy Bernstein, Nancy Bernstein, Nancy Bernstein,
Oh,
Nancy
no,
Bernstein,
she's-
Bernstein. Is that the employee?
That's the.
And these are all separate vendors?
Yes, the vendor.
Are we back to the P cards? yet?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, it looks like that's the employee name. And so they all actually are, there is about $10,000, but they are to each discrete separate vendors. So I'm totally comfortable.
Okay.
All right, so all those in favor of the P cards, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? P cards are approved. We're still in Public Works Committee, Bill 2112.
Bill 2112, Resolution vacating a portion of Watson Street laid out in the proposed Duquesne Light Company parcel in the lot consolidation plan as recorded in Plan Book Volume 308, page 106 in the 4th Ward, 6th Council District.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 2113.
Bill 2113, Resolution amending Resolution 461 entitled Resolution providing for an amended reimbursement agreement with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for the costs associated with the preliminary engineering phase of the Smithfield Street Reconstruction Project and providing for the payment of municipal incurred costs not to exceed $800,000 and the previously authorized municipal share of Commonwealth incurred costs not to exceed $5,000, to increase the total not to exceed amount to $9,080,000 for the addition of the final design, utility work, right-of-way and construction phases to the project, federally reimbursable at 80%, and the municipal share of Commonwealth incurred costs not to exceed $47,000, an increase of $42,000 to clarify municipal incurred and total project costs.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 2114.
Bill 2114, Resolution amending Resolution 105 entitled Resolution amending 447, providing for an amended reimbursement agreement with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for costs associated with the preliminary engineering phase of the Penn Avenue Reconstruction Phase 2 project and providing for the payment of municipal incurred costs not to exceed $825,000, federally reimbursable at 80%, and the municipal share of Commonwealth incurred costs not to exceed $10,000, to increase the total not to exceed amount to $1,975,000, federally reimbursable at 80%, and the municipal share of Commonwealth incurred costs not to exceed $18,000, to clarify municipal incurred and total project costs.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 2115.
Bill 2115, Resolution granting unto New Granada Develop LLC their successors and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense to reconstruct a historical marquee and vertical sign at 2007 Center Avenue in the 5th Ward, 6th Council District.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 2116.
Bill 2116, resolution granting unto Urban Redevelopment Authority their successors and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense an entrance ADA accessible ramp at 2178 Center Avenue in the Fifth Ward, Sixth Council District.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 2117.
Bill 2117, resolution granting unto Orlando Family Irrevocable Trust their successors and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense to install a new projecting sign at 5993 Center Avenue in the Eighth Ward, Ninth Council District.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 2118.
Bill 2118, resolution granting unto 3PNC Residential LLC their successors and assigns the privilege and license to construct, maintain, and use at their own cost and expense to install a letter set on a low-profile raceway on an existing canopy at 510 Market Street in the Second Ward, Sixth Council District.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bill is recommended. That moves us to Land Use and Economic Development Committee chaired by Councilman Wilson. First new paper, actually, we have a number of bills that need to be held for public hearing. Can we read Bill 2122, 2123, 2124 together?
Yes. Bill 2122, resolution approving a new institutional master plan under the Pittsburgh Code Title 9 zoning Article 2, Chapter 905, Section 90503D, and Article 7, Chapter 922, Section 92212G for Duquesne University entitled Duquesne University Institutional Master Plan dated September 2021 on property currently zoned EMI, Educational Medical Institution District, First Ward, Council District 6. Bill number 2123, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code Title 9 zoning Article 1, Section 90203 zoning map by changing from Uptown Public RAM Subdistrict 8 to Educational Medical Institution, a certain property at 1323 Forbes Avenue, Block L1, L Lot number 42 in the Allegheny County Block and Lot System. A portion of the parcel is currently zoned Uptown Public RAM Subdistrict 8. Bill number 2124, resolution approving a new institutional master plan under the Pittsburgh Code Title 9 zoning Article 2, Chapter 905, Chapter 922 for the Pittsburgh Theological Seminary named Institutional Master Plan dated October 6 of 2021 on property zone EMI Educational Medical Institution District 11, District 11th Ward, Council District 9.
Motion to hold all three, 22, 23, and 24 for Cablecast public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All bills will be held for Cablecast public hearing. Bill 2125.
Bill 2125, resolution further amending resolution number 863, adopting and approving the 2019 capital budget and the 2019 CDBG program, the 2019 through 2024 capital improvement program, so as to reduce community-based organizations by $4,300.29, increase neighborhood economic development by $4,300.29, and authorize a subsequent agreement.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. That moves us to Urban Recreation Committee chaired by Councilman Burgess. Our first deferred paper is Bill 1885.
Bill 1885, resolution authorizing pursuant to Chapter 173 of the Code, renaming of Roberto Clemente Drive in the Fourth Ward to Roberto and Vera Clemente Drive.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 2121.
Bill 2121, resolution authorizing pursuant to Chapter 173 of the City Code entitled Commission on Naming Public Properties, Powers and Duties, subsection F. City Council hereby names the park created by the I-579 CAP Urban Connector Project, which spans over a portion of I-579 Crosstown Boulevard and is bounded by Washington Place, Center Avenue, Chatham Street, Bigelow Boulevard, and includes land to the north of Bigelow Boulevard as Frankie Pace Park. The area in question occupies lot block numbers 2B 107, 257, 406, and 402.
To approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended.
Congratulations, Councilman Lavelle.
Thank you. Our new paper is Bill 2108.
Bill 2108, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Parks and Recreation to enter on behalf of the city into a license agreement with Carnegie Mellon University for the Smart Parks Deployment Project in Mellon Park at no cost to the city.
Motion to approve.
Second,
Any discussion?
I just want to thank Carnegie Mellon.
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended. Bill 2109.
Bill 2109, resolution authorizing the mayor and director of the Department of Parks and Recreation to receive grant funding from the United States Tennis Association to reimburse the city for costs incurred by the tennis program not to exceed $4,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Wait.
Although, if seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill is recommended.
Mr. Chair, can I,
Want to register an aye vote?
Let me do that for you.
Yes, sir.
thank you.
That moves us to Intergovernmental Affairs Committee chaired by Councilwoman Gross. One deferred paper, Bill 2101.
Bill 2101, ordinance amending and supplementing the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances in multiple locations with provisions related to lead safety and mitigation in order to reduce and thereby mitigate the health risk of exposure of city residents and particularly young children to lead hazards.
Motion to hold 1 week,
Second,
With discussion,
currently.
if I may. I don't believe this is part of the bill, but just a thought. As we talk about vacant land, as we talk about vacant property, as we talk about demolition, one of the additional problems we have is when we demo the old tradition of simply putting it into the ground, thus you're putting the lead into the ground. There are sort of new ways for people to learn how to decommission is not the appropriate word. Deconstruct, thank
We
you.
already passed it, yeah.
Is that part of this?
We passed it already, and it is embedded, but we already voted on it earlier this year.
No, that was the one for Construction Junction, the project we were doing with them.
Oh, right.
This, what I'm suggesting, and it's not part of this, but it's a conversation we should probably have, is about training. And when we take these buildings down, that we do so also in sort of a lead safe way. I know in speaking with Councilman Walton, he knows more about it than I do. But I think it's worthwhile a conversation that as we're having this larger lead conversation that we should probably be having.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with you. We have to extract everything from the land, whether it's basement, typically in the past, what they'll do is just fill the basement up with, all the debris that's from the house, level it off. It's like you never know it's there. Unless you test your soil like Councilwoman Gross does on a regular
Exactly.
basis, and then she will tell you it is filled with lead. So yeah, I don't know the expense wise, it doesn't seem like it should be, overwhelmingly should be cost effective still. But to what you're saying, Councilman Lavelle, about rehabbing abandoned properties, if the bones are good, absolutely. And if they're not, then they have to be torn down. But yes, the cheapest, most affordable, best way to do it is to keep the structure, even if it's just the outside of it, and replace everything on the inside. And then we could talk about affordable housing, I guess, at a for sale or ownership, I should say. So that's all. I just wanted to comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Strasburger, I see your hand go up.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to note that deconstruction is a part of this bill. And so although it does really just call for an enactment of the executive order that was introduced by the mayor earlier this year on deconstruction and incentivizing that, there's a significant portion that is intended to be about demolition and lead safe demolition and really encouraging deconstruction wherever possible. And much like other portions of this bill or items that we would like to see in this bill, not everything's going to be in the bill. I think a lot of things, such as what you're talking about, Councilman Laval, this should be a vehicle for getting the conversation started. So when we're talking about vacant land, or we're talking about setting up of escrow programs as part of this bill, or we're talking about an additional fund that can be solely set aside for, a revolving loan fund or grants for property owners to make their renovations to meet lead standards. I think those are things that we want to include in the bill as is necessary, but probably many of those vehicles will exist outside of the bill. So I agree that this can be a really great conversation starter for some of those other initiatives.
Thank you. Now be sure to read the bill in its entirety in detail. So I apologize. Councilman Wilson.
I believe it also captures city properties that are demo, that they'll use the wet method that captures the dust, the lead dust that could, enter into another, the property next to it. So that's part of it as well.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, you made a motion to hold.
Hold 1 week.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bill will be held 1 week. That exhausts our agenda. We do have some meeting announcements. Tomorrow, Wednesday, November 10th, with sessions at 1 and 1:30, council will hold a briefing with the URA relative to the 2022 Housing Opportunity Fund Annual Allocation Plan. Next week, council will hold their regular and standing committee meetings on Tuesday, November 16th and Wednesday, November 17th, respectively at 10 a.m. Next Tuesday, November 16th at 12, there will be an overview and policy discussion for the 2022 City Council budget. Budget hearings will begin next Wednesday, the 17th at 1:30 p.m. Also, this Thursday, November 11th, council and clerk's offices will be closed in observance of Veterans Day. And announcements, President Smith.
Thank you. I just want to say that we are working on the task force for the food groups and for the nonprofits, and I should have that information today. Councilwoman Gross is going to chair the food group. You agreed to we're trying to figure out who's going to chair the group for the nonprofit accountability. But I also want to talk about, I know that we are working on the park tax, and that committee, I asked to please bring some recommendations to Reverend Burgess and to council by Wednesday or Thursday of this week. And if whatever we have in place by that day, that's what we're going to present to council, or that's what you'll present to council, because we have to move on this. But I want to make it clear that I've asked and repeatedly to not have any organization eligible for the funding to sit on any group determining how those funds will be spent or allocated. So that is the one thing I'm going to keep saying over and over again is, so for instance, if a Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy is eligible for the funding, they shouldn't be sitting on the committee determining how the funds are going to be allocated. I want to make sure that that process is clear and clean, and that the public has confidence in the transparency of it all. And that's, so for those are just a couple of the things we're working on, but I want to thank members because we are doing a lot of task force and a lot of things, and we wouldn't be able to get a lot of this stuff done if it weren't for you taking the extra time. So thank you all for everything you've been doing.
Thank you. Any further announcements? If not, need a motion to excuse the absent member, approve the minutes and adjourn the meeting.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 We are adjourned.